But I guess this is more of the segue and the transition to a different topic. And that is some of the Steelers' new signings that we recently made. Familiar faces, too. Familiar names. Terrell Edmunds, we picked up off of the Jaguars practice squad. That one came out of nowhere to me because the Steelers are kind of set at safety. Obviously, we have the best safety in the league with Minkah Fitzpatrick out there as our starting free safety. And alongside him, we have Deshaun Elliott, who we picked up in free agency from the Dolphins. We're paying him to be the starter. And then we brought back Monte Casey, who could be a starter in his own right, but in this role he's in now, he's our third guy. And then Miles Killebrew is our fourth safety, who, I don't think we love him as safety depth, but he is an awesome special teamer, made an All-Pro last year. So you're just sitting there wondering yourself, I mean, what's Edmunds' role? What's he going to do here? Is he just flat out right depth? Because we remember what Edmunds was doing when he was here, and he was the starter alongside Minkah. He started 75 games for us as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and I thought played well. I thought Edmunds was a quality starter for us. I would have liked to bring him back after his fifth year. Ultimately ended up signing with the Eagles, gets traded to the Titans in the middle of last year, and then he's a free agent this offseason, goes to the Jaguars on their practice squad. I think he dressed for the Jaguars' first game, but was put back on their practice squad, and that's what made him available, and we ended up picking him up. I always thought Edmunds was a quality player. So I love this pickup. I love this signing. But I just don't know where he fits right now. Maybe on passing situations, we can move him up into the box and have him play some like dime linebacker, have him play some coverage against tight ends or running backs. So maybe there's some snaps out there, but Deshaun Elliott played awesome last week. I don't think there was anything wrong with Casey's play either. If you want to talk about the secondary as a whole even, Beanie Bishop played good. JPJ, he picked up where he left off from last year. Dante Jackson had a pick, should have had two. Like, our secondary as a whole was pretty lights out. So I like the pickup with Edmunds. There's nothing wrong with us signing him and adding him to this team for the quality depth that he brings. But it'll just be interesting to see how the combination in that safety room plays out and how the snaps get divvied up. Because right now, there's no reason to take anything away from Minkah or Deshaun Elliott, obviously. And then you have a Casey and an Edmunds. That's, you know what? Yeah, we're stacked at safety. We're stacked at safety. Nothing wrong with that. But for Edmunds' sake, I don't know where the snaps are coming from early on. And I don't think he really cares because he was on the Jaguars. I bet you just him being here with the Steelers is an upgrade for him, being back home. And then Corliss Waitman, obviously Cameron Johnson, our punter, went down with a gruesome injury against the Falcons. Boz had to come in there and punt one for us, which was awesome. Boz delivered on that aspect. And then we're sitting here on Monday. We don't know how bad really the injury is. Tomlin said post-game that it was bad, but you don't know if that means he's just going to be out for the season. Are we going to have to put him on IR for 4 games? But it turns out Cam Johnson, with that knee injury he suffered, makes him unavailable for the whole 2024 season. So that leaves the Steelers empty-handed with a punter. And their solution was to sign Corliss Waitman. And there were a couple other names being floated out there for the Steelers to consider, and they were all retreads. They were all reunions. Corliss Waitman was one. Presley Harvin, a guy that we drafted a couple years ago and ended up cutting this offseason, was another. Spent some time with the 49ers in preseason. And then Brad Wing. He was with the Steelers way back in the day, but had some spot starts for us last year when Harvin was, I think he was out with an injury and didn't punt too bad for us most recently. I liked Waitman. If we were going to go with those 3 options, I didn't really even know what other punters were out there and available that would make sense. But out of those 3 guys, I preferred Corliss Waitman because I think whenever he was here with the Steelers, out of those 3, he gave us the best performances because it was technically 2 games he was with us. Even though it was a short sample size, he looked the best out of those 3. And then when he signed with Denver in 2022, he wasn't too bad. Like, he led the league in punts attempted. Was that Russ's first year in Denver? Okay, that number makes sense. And he averaged 41.4 yards per punt. I think that was actually net yards per punt, which ranked 12th in the league. So anytime a punter is over 40 yards on net average, that's quality. You're at least average, potentially above average compared to the rest of the league. And he ranked 12th that season. So that's not bad. You could do worse than Corliss Waitman as an emergency option, I think. So I'm happy about this signing, and it even makes more sense given that we're going up against Denver this week, where Waitman played a whole 2022 season there. So he's familiar with the atmosphere, familiar with the turf, familiar with probably all the things that you need to be familiar with as it pertains to punting in a given city. So I like the signing. Makes sense for this week, at least. I think Tomlin is honestly going to approach this punter situation on a week by week trial basis. Like, if Waitman sucks, I don't think he would have any hesitation with cutting Waitman and picking up a Presley Harvin or signing a Brad Wingen, or who knows, with an Omar Khan, maybe even looking out there and trying to trade for a guy. But yeah, those are some of the top storylines that have taken place in Steeler Nation over the last, day or two. Now, before I get into Steelers Broncos preview, because that's how we're going to end this stream, let me check in with the chat, see who's tuning in here on this Wednesday. Steeler fan 532 asks, chances Russ is the backup or Kyle Allen? It's a good question. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Russ was only dressed last week as the emergency quarterback, and we had Kyle Allen as the backup. I would assume it would be the same way this week. If Russ is limited throughout the week, he's considered not healthy, I don't think we'd have him as the backup. Like, if Justin Fields were to go down, I think we would go with Kyle Allen. And then in the worst case scenario, Kyle Allen goes down too, then Russ would be thrown out there. But I would assume, given Russ's health, our offense wouldn't look like it would if Russ was fully healthy. We might have just like a more limited palette of plays that we could go with at that point. I would assume he's the emergency quarterback again this week, because if Russ is fully healthy, I could see Tomlin declaring him the starter. But it's weird. There's this fine balance of when Russ is fully healthy. Say Russ is fully healthy. He's declared fully healthy by Friday. And Justin Fields, up to that point, has taken all the 1 reps, and he's the guy that's expected to be the starter, and we're game planning with Fields being QB1, then I could still see them sticking with Fields. Whereas if like Russ was declared fully healthy today, that's a different story. If he was declared fully healthy yesterday, I think the further you get along with the week of Russ being limited and him not being declared healthy, the more likely is it's going to be Fields no matter what, no matter how good Russ is on game day. I think then you're talking about Russ potentially being the guy for next week. Like, you're going to have a week 3 mindset with him the further he goes along not being healthy in this thing for week 2. Steven 26. And at that point, though, let me finish this real quick. And with that, if Fields plays good, like let's say he plays really, really good against Denver, we get the win, I feel like it might not matter. Going back to what I was saying at the beginning, it might not even matter if Russ is healthy or not. We still might just decide to roll with the hot hand. So the opportunity is there for Fields, in my opinion, to take the job. You saw what happened with Mason Rudolph last year. Steven 26, thoughts on Peyton Wilson's debut? It was awesome, man, because it was a little odd to see Patrick Queen, the guy that we paid all that money to this offseason, a guy that's considered a top 5 linebacker in the league, missed some tackles early on in the game. And then when we got to see Peyton Wilson faced with similar scenarios, he was a much more sure tackler. I thought he was really good. That's not a shot at Patrick Queen or anything, because it might take him a little bit. And I think that's what the case was, not only for him, but a lot of this Steelers team for the first couple series. It just might take a little bit to get acclimated to regular season ball. But I really like what Peyton Wilson brought to the table. I think the moment wasn't too big for him at all. I think he fit right in and was a good factor for us on defense. Chelson asked TJ Watt for DPOY. Of course, it's TJ Watt for DPOY pretty much every year that he's in his prime. Every year, because he is really that good. Dude should have 3. Unfortunately, only has 1. But if the season ended today, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't win it, because he, in my opinion, was clearly the best defensive player out there across the league last week. It's unfortunate the stat line. See, again, you have to watch the games. You can't just be looking at the box scores. It's unfortunate the stat line didn't indicate that completely. He still ended up with what? A sack, 2 tackles for loss, a fumble recovery, but he should have had 3 sacks. He should have had 3 sacks, 2 strip sacks, a fumble recovery. Dude was just all over the place, wrecking the game. So yes, you posed that as a question, TJ Watt for Defensive Player of the Year with a question mark at the end. That should be a statement.